Hello everyone, today we are going to talk about past perfect and past perfect continuous. So we are kind of finishing talking about past tenses as we had already discussed all of the past tenses and these are the last ones. We have some expressions we can use for the past and we also talked about them too, like used to, would. So then let's dive into this topic. The first one is past perfect. So the form is easy. We see the auxiliary verb, it is had. And of course, we use past participle, which is the third form of the verb, or ed ending with irregular verbs. Here we have she had arrived, or she had gone. When we ask questions, as usual, we put the auxiliary verb in front of the subject, and here we have a question. Had she arrived, gone? As in present perfect or in present perfect continuous, the form of the verb doesn't change. It means that it is still arrived and it is still gone. Still gone. Yeah, we don't change it. And the question is, had she arrived or had she gone? When it comes to short answers, we use auxiliary verb, of course. If the answer is positive, we use the positive form. Yes, she had, or yes, he had. And if the answer is negative, no, she hadn't, or no, he hadn't, they hadn't, we hadn't. So we change the pronoun. The negative sentence, negation, is formed by adding not, as usual. She had not, or she hadn't, the contracted form, arrived, gone. Let's look at past perfect continuous. They are kind of alike, but we have one difference. Of course, what is usual for continuous tenses, it's ing ending of the verb and to be. But here we have be in the third form. So the sentence sounds like, he had been crying. Question, had he been crying? Been and crying, they stick together. While had is in the first place and it comes before the subject. Negative, short answers, they are the same as in past perfect. Yes, he had. No, he hadn't. Negative sentences are formed as usual. We add not after our auxiliary verb and it sounds like he had not been crying or he hadn't been crying. So let's talk about the use when we use these tenses. Firstly, we are going to talk about past perfect and I'd like to start with examples. Let's read this one. They had already reserved the table when they went to the restaurant. So we see that before going to this restaurant, they had reserved the table. So this action, that was the first to happen in this sequence of actions. And here we have the explanation, the action which happened before another past action or before stated time in the past. Also, we have another example. They had already sat down for dinner by 8 p.m. So here is the stated time by 8 p.m. and we see that they had already sat down. So by this time, they had already been doing something. Yeah, they had sat down. Okay, so the next one. Bill had injured his legs in a car accident, so he had to use a wheelchair for 6 months. Here we see that the action is finished in the past, but the result was visible in the past too. So he had injured his legs in a car accident, so that's why he had to use a wheelchair. Firstly, he had injured his legs, then he had to use the wheelchair. So here the explanation sounds like, for an action which finished in the past and whose result was visible in the past. So we see, yeah, like the wheelchair. Okay, also we need to remember that past perfect is the past equivalent of the present perfect. we remember that present perfect is usually about the result in the present, but past perfect is the equivalent. It means that it's also about the result, but in the past. So he had broken his leg, so he couldn't walk. This action had broken happened in the past, and the result couldn't walk was visible in the past too. And here we are just comparing it with present perfect. He has broken his leg, so he can't walk. The action has broken happened in the past, and the result can't walk is still visible in the present. So this is the main difference, because in the first one we have past action, past result, but in this one past action, but the present result. So next one is past perfect continuous. I will also make some examples with both of the tenses, but before, let's talk about past continuous. So if past perfect is about the result we had in the past, past perfect continuous is also about the result, but we also pay attention to the duration as usual because it's continuous tense. So the example, they had been skating together for 5 years before they entered the competition. So before they entered the competition, they had been skating together for 5 years. So here we are paying attention that this was the long action. They had been skating together for 5 years, and then they entered this competition. So to put emphasis on the duration of an action which started and finished in the past, before another past action or a stated time in the past, usually with since or for. So we use past perfect continuous in this situation. Also, here we have another example. Look at this woman. I hope she doesn't look like you after your working day. I really hope. So it says, she had been working hard that day, so she was tired. Okay, so she had been working hard all day long. That's why she was tired. And the explanation sounds as for an action which lasted for some time in the past and whose result was visible in the past. Okay. So also, there are some words we can use with both tenses, the expressions. Here one more thing. We can use past perfect or past simple before, with before, after, without any difference in meaning. So we can actually use these tenses too. She left after she had finished her work. She left after she finished her work. It's totally fine. We can use it. But of course, if you use like had finished, it shows that you know, like you have a range of grammar, you know more. But anyways, it's the same. It's totally fine. It doesn't change any meaning at all. Next one, a past perfect is used with following time expressions as before, after, already, for, since, just, till, until, when, by the time, never, etc. While past perfect continuous is used with the expressions like for, since, how long, before, and until, etc. Also, the same as past perfect simple, past perfect continuous is the equivalent of present perfect continuous. Again, everything in the past. The first example, he had been waiting for hours, so he was bored. The action had been waiting lasted for some time in the past, and the result was bored was visible in the past. He has been waiting for hours, so he's bored. The action has been waiting started in the past, and the result is bored is visible in the present. So that's the main difference. And I know that you know how to differentiate past and present. So it's just a reminder. Then I'd like to make some examples for you. Let's make examples with past perfect and past perfect continuous. So I can say that, for example, let's imagine that I go to work and then I come home. So by the time, let's say like something imaginary. By the time I came home. My family had cooked had had cooked me some meal and cleaned the house. Okay, so it's kind of my dream. And yeah, here you see that I'm using past perfect and I'm using, 1 second, yeah, I'm using had in the first one, and then I'm not using it one more time. I can actually say my family had cooked me some meal and had cleaned the house. But if we have one auxiliary verb, it's okay to use just the verb in the third form because, like, yeah, it is there. So by the time I came home, my family had cooked me some meal. So it means that when I came home, everything was ready. I had a perfectly cooked dinner and the house was clean and I was enjoying it. So yeah, I had the result. And let's make one in. And let's make one more with present past perfect continuous. Okay, let's say that. 1 second. Let's look at the words we can use with it. Okay. And say, yeah, we are going to make it. For example, I had been preparing for my lessons for 2 hours before I went to school. And here we have the time, specific one. Yeah, like kind of before I went to school, some kind of an action. And we have a long action that happened before. I had been preparing for my lessons for 2 hours. And only after that, I went to school. Sometimes my students ask me like why we need these past perfect and past perfect continuous. Actually, we need them to make sure that in the long texts or in long stories, people will understand that this action happened first and then some other ones. For example, I can also say that I had met my husband 4 years before I got married him. And here I had met my husband means that firstly I met him and after that we got married. Also, let's talk about this one. We have some examples here too. So the difference between past simple, past continuous, and past perfect. We have some examples and we are going to read them. First one. Last Monday, Lisa and her husband fed the children when he came home. So when her husband came home, they fed the children together. So he came and they did it. Next one, it's past simple. Last Tuesday, Lisa was feeding the children when her husband came home. So she was in process, she was feeding them, and her husband came home. It's past continuous. And the third one is last Friday, Lisa had already fed the children when her husband came home. So we see that the bottles are empty. So she had already fed the children. And only after that, her husband showed up at the door. Look at this woman. She's like, where have you been? Okay, so yeah, we have the difference between these three ones. And actually, it's really, yeah, it's visible. So I hope that everything is clear. If you have any questions, you can always text me. You can always reach out to me. And good luck with your tasks. So see you next lesson. Bye bye.